There he is.
Here I am. How you doing, bud?
Good to see you, man. It's good to see you.
It's great to be with you.
Yeah. So Selena is screen recording all of this. So um, you may want to turn your volume down a little bit.
That good?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have any feedback on my
Great.
end. So this is what I hope to be the first of many community quarantines. My name is Sean Sheppard, and I am the founder of Game Changer. And my first guest, I think, is appropriate and inappropriate.
Probably true.
Ed McLaughlin, the athletic director of Virginia Commonwealth University. Thanks for joining me today. We've known each other a long, long time. I want to take some time to get to know you better and allow other people to know you too, Ed.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate it. Our friendship goes back a long way, and I know I'm a better man because I'm friends with you.
Yeah, and I can definitely say the same. Before we get started, man, talk to me about how you and your family have handled this virus, and how is everybody doing? Talk to me about that. Not just your wife and kids. I mean your folks and everything.
Yeah, it's been a crazy month for everybody, I think, right? So, from a truly local perspective, we've got everyone home now. So my daughter, who is a freshman soccer player at Clemson, she's home as well, doing her distance learning from home. Which, if you can imagine being 19 and want to be out of the house and then being stuck with your parents for a few months, that's not optimal,
Yeah.
But we're very, very lucky and blessed to be healthy, and everyone's doing great. So we're adjusting to this. I mean, I explain to people I've never not had an office to go to every day. In 25 years of being a professional, I've had a job in an office to go to every single day. So this whole teleworking thing has been it's been very, very different for me, to say the least. But it is interesting when this whole thing kind of really started to pop. We were in Brooklyn at the A10 tournament, and we were on the floor for the national anthem when the league canceled our tournament, our basketball tournament.
So you guys got pulled off the court too?
We, as I like to tell people, like, we were the game that never was. I mean, we were literally, the horn goes off at 1 minute before the anthem to let the teams know to go over to get in line for the anthem. And our head coach, Mike Rose, looks at me and says, "Are we doing this?" And I said, "We're doing it until they tell us we're not doing it." And then about 20 seconds later, someone from the league came over and said, "We're canceling the tournament." I said, "Hey, Mike, we're not doing it." I mean, it was that quick. I mean, It was, and then the tournament was over. I mean, so how do you explain to a group of seniors, hey, you don't get to play anymore? I mean, and then probably 3 or 4 hours later, we canceled all the spring sports. The NCAA changed everything. I mean, all these professional leagues had gone to canceling or sort of postponing their seasons for now. So it was in a short window between probably almost 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock. The entire sports world changed, and I had a front row to it. I mean, it was an incredible thing to be a part of. But I think it is interesting. Our student athletes are doing a lot of distance learning now and adapting to that. But I was on Zoom calls today with our men's tennis team and our women's lacrosse team, and everyone's ready to get back to campus. Everyone's, I think, like everybody else, a little bit of cabin fever. We're just going to get through this and stay positive.
So I mean, that's amazing. And I haven't spoken to you about that, but I had no idea that you guys were on the court getting ready to play a game and were one of the teams. I guess that happened around the country. In some cases, that you're ready to play the game, and the plug was pulled. You went to the locker room, disoriented, and went back. Describe that process. You go back to the locker room, and then what?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. First, I mean, trying to tell our guys what's going on. So our guys did a little impromptu dunk contest on the floor of the Barclays Center, which was something I hope they'll never forget. I mean, it was nice. We're standing there in front of an empty arena because we had agreed the night before as ADs and that morning, like, we're going to play these games, but we're going to play in an empty arena, right? Until it doesn't make sense anymore. so it's an empty arena, but our guys had a dunk contest. Our band was still there. The band cheered, and all those folks are still there. So our guys had a little dunk contest, and then they went and celebrated with the band a little bit. The band played some music, and the guys went and hung out with the band members, which was sort of one of those unique VCU things that was really cool. It was pretty awesome by our guys. But then, I just made sure I grabbed all of our seniors and told them that I loved them and how proud I am of them as men, what they've become as human beings, and thank them for everything they did for us as a program. That's all you really can do is just sort of lean in and embrace those moments, and never kind of miss the opportunity to tell someone that you love them.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, man. I didn't know you did that. And speaking of the entire COVID-19 response, what did the adjustment look like from a university standpoint? I mean, you're in Brooklyn, now you're back in Richmond, and you're scrambling to figure out which way is up. Take me through a little of that process from a university standpoint, and how you were able to formulate a game plan as the leader of an entire athletic department.
Yeah, it was sort of, it is interesting. I was saying to someone, like, during that week or those few days, I mean, an hour felt like 5 days because so much changed in every single hour, right? So we were, I mean, there's nothing in the owner's manual about being an athletic director or any type of university leader. There's nothing in the owner's manual that tells you how to handle this. So you kind of have to feel your way through it. But we really try to be intentional of, okay, how do we make sure that our student athletes are taken care of first and foremost? How do we make sure that our staff knows what they're doing and moving forward? The university extended spring break by a week, which I thought was super helpful to let the professors get organized for distance learning. But then it was sort of like a mad scramble. I mean, I remember looking that Thursday that the tournament was canceled and our world sort of changed. You can look on your iPhone for screen time, and I had 16 hours of screen time at the end of the day. That's a lot.
Wow. Yeah, man.
That's a lot between being on the phone. I mean, that's, no one needs to be on their iPhone that much, right? So
you're gonna have to get your prescription changed on your glasses.
I know. Believe me, that's why I have to wear them now so much. But it really is. I mean, it's one of those things we just sort of said, like, how do we make the best decisions with the information that we have, and convey to people everything's so uncertain. This may change tomorrow,
right?
So have some patience and some grace with this whole thing, and let's be positive. This is one of those things we're going to deal with it, and we're going to be smart, and we're going to put the kids' health first, which was obviously, first thing that we had to do is like, what's going to be the healthiest for everybody, and then everything else you can adapt to, right? And so we just kind of said, okay, how are we going to do from an academic support perspective, tutoring our academic advisors, and then we go down to what's the next level? Okay, from a sports performance, strength and conditioning, sports psych. How do we set up all those services so that for our student athletes that doesn't get discontinued? So, this is obviously a time when a lot of students have to learn differently than they've ever learned in their lives. So there's anxiety that goes with that. And how do we set up some counseling, psychology stuff that will help our student athletes kind of manage the stress and the anxiety of these times? So it's kind of like putting all those pieces together and trying to put yourself in a place and say, how do we make this as normal in a completely abnormal time? And yet what you really have to do is rely on your staff. And it's one of those things. I am incredibly blessed that I have such a good staff. I mean, and everyone really rallied around. No one belly ached. No one said how terrible this is. This is just reality. Let's learn from it and make it better for everybody, which we did. So I'm incredibly lucky for that.
Well, the folks on campus are lucky to have you there. You mentioned something at the beginning about this being the first time in your 25-year career that you haven't had an office and a desk to go to every day. And with you saying that, it really does kind of shed light for me on the work ethic that I've been able to witness in you from afar. Take us back to when you feel that work ethic started to be cultivated. How far back does that go?
Oh gosh, Yeah, I mean, probably like when I was 11 years old and my dad would make me stack things out in the backyard to get things done, right? I mean, like there's a bunch of wood in the backyard, I had to stack it. And, you know, he'd say, everyone's going to start somewhere, you know, and you want to be successful, you got to work at it in life. And I think, you know, growing up, I always had that work ethic just drilled into me. And I mean, in that most positive way. But, you know, nothing in life that's worth doing gets accomplished without hard work. And if
Right.
you can be positive, you can work hard, and you can make it about other people at all times, you can be pretty successful in life. And I've been certainly blessed to have success with that. But it was from an early age. Hard work was just a baseline in my family. And you know, from a professional perspective, when I first got out of college and I started working at my college, you know, I was at the bottom of the barrel and that one as well. But I figured out pretty quickly, like if you work really hard and you can do some things and make yourself pretty invaluable, you can move up in the food chain pretty quickly. You really can. I mean, it's this at the end of the day, working in college athletics is still a meritocracy. You know, we're still the people who perform the best, the people who do the hardest work. Not indifferent than when you were a strength coach and you know, you moved up pretty quickly because you were so good at what you did. You know, I kind of learned that if I can really dial in and work hard and outwork people, I can make up for all the things I didn't have. You know, I didn't play sport in college. I played in high school, but I didn't play sport in college, so I had that going against me in terms of advancement in this business. But I figured if I can work really hard and I can just sort of outwork everything, it's going to pay off in the end. Maybe that's a naive way to look at it, but it worked. So you know, for me, it's just from when I first started my career, my first year out, I just figured I'm going to work harder than everybody. And, you know, if I am going to be the last person to leave every day, if that's what it takes. And most times I was the last person to leave at Merrimack and I was the first person in. And you know what? It served me pretty well.
So Ed, when you talk about stacking wood, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so we grew up just outside of Boston. We lived sort of bounced around a bunch of places, but my sort of teen years in middle school and high school, I lived in Natick, Massachusetts, which is just outside of about 15 miles outside of Boston to the west. So, you know, typical middle class upbringing type of thing like that.
Public school, private
Public
school?
schools, yep. Until I got to high school, I got put in a private school in high school because I had a little bit of a behavioral issue.
What high school was that?
I was at Noble and Greeno School, which is in Dedham, Massachusetts. So yeah, when I was in 8th grade, I lit the school bus on fire, and yeah, I mean, let me tell the story a little. I'm burying the lead a little bit. So you know, yeah, I mean, like, so there was paint on those old, you know, old school buses, right? And there was paint on the school bus on one of the seats in the back, and we had the same bus every day, so you see the same paint and on the thing. And one of my friends dared me that paint wouldn't burn, and I proved him right. And lit the seat on fire. There was another time I cut a hole in the back of the bus and brought some golf balls in the bus, and we dropped golf balls out the back of the school bus. And I dropped them out on the floor in the back of the school bus, and they're bouncing all over the road as they went. So I was, you know, I was allowed to go and get some discipline in my life, to say the least. But it worked out. I mean, it really prepared me academically for what college was going to be like. Then I ended up going to Boston College, and it was by far the foremost formative years of my life, and changed me. Took me from being someone who didn't understand anything to realizing I had so much to learn, but I felt like I had grown so much in that time as well.
So you mentioned your dad. You light this school bus on fire, and then you got to go home.
Yeah, that didn't go well. So
how did that go? What was discipline
not great.
like?
And,
what was discipline like in the McLaughlin household?
It was hard. It was firm. I'll say that. You know, I mean, it was one of those things where I actually kept it from my parents for a little bit.
How?
Because I wasn't allowed to. The guy who was the principal, Mr. Donovan, was a wonderful guy, and he kind of took care of me a little bit and said, you know, if you just don't ride the school bus anymore, and this was probably like 2 months left in the school year, if you don't ride the school bus anymore, then I can keep this from your parents for now. So kind of cooked the deal because I was already, you know, kind of had some other issues. And he said, you know, but he saw the good in me, and that was a really good thing. So I rode my bike to school for a couple months, and I got my friends to do it with me. So it didn't look like it was something out of the ordinary. I mean, it was like probably one of my first times being a leader and collaborating, right? I mean, you got to figure it out. So for a while, everyone rode their bikes to school, and it seemed like it was a normal thing just because I could get people to do it with me. So, but it was really, I mean, you know, that time was definitely crazy and wild time. But the discipline was not fun when it came down. I'll say that it was not fun. I did not want to go home once they found out.
So, but ultimately they found out.
Yeah.
And was your dad the disciplinarian? Was it your mom? Was it timeout, or was there some laying of hands on you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I mean, they were both pretty scary. I'll say that. I mean, you know, they took their turns at it. You know, but I will say, I mean, it's one of those things where they were always so supportive of me. You know, and even the times when, even through high school, when I was trying to figure out, you know, who I was as a human being, they were always so supportive of me that it definitely, if I didn't have an understanding of consequences, it would have been a really bad thing.
Yeah. Well, so you're in high school. You said you played sports in high school.
Yep.
And it was a private school. Was it Catholic school?
No, just private school. Yep.
So private school. What sports did you play?
I played baseball and I played football.
Which sport did you like the best?
I was always a baseball guy. I mean, I love football because of the team part of it and the camaraderie part of it. But you know, I mean, that part was, I love football, but I'm a baseball guy at heart, and I stopped playing hockey at that point, and didn't play in high school either. But you know, like when you were a kid, we were the same way. Like you played every sport, you just kind of did it all. I mean, there was one day you're going to go out in the pond, you're going to play hockey, and there's another day you're going to play football, you're going to play baseball, you're going to play wiffle ball, you're going to do all these different things. I mean, like, you know, that's what you did as a kid. At least that's what I did. And to me, there was nothing more enjoyable than and there still is, just go sit out at a baseball game or go, you know, when I was a kid, I would go watch the Red Sox play all the time and against your Yankees. It's okay. It's amazing.
A different discussion. That's a different discussion.
It's amazing how close we are, being a guy from Boston and a guy from New York. I mean, it's amazing how close we are. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love both of them. I mean, it was, you know, probably one of the more formative human beings in my life was my high school football coach, a guy named Nick Marinaro, who he was incredibly impactful on me, and certainly a lot of the things that I take in life right now and that are important to me in life, I learned from him. I mean, you know me, I'm never late. I mean, it's always, well, if I can figure out the technology or not, that's another story for a different day. But I'm never late for anything. And he always would say, if you can't be on time, be early. And I'm always, that's one of those things. And he'd also say, the only important play is the next one. And I think in life, that really is true. I mean, you can try to lay blame on things when things don't go wrong, or you can try to fix it and move on. And he was incredibly impactful in my life. He, one of the best, certainly the best coach I ever played for in anything, by far.
Your high school football coach.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about mine, man. I mean, he had a tremendous impact on my life. And I'm glad that you had the opportunity to have that experience, because not very many people have that experience. So you play baseball, you're on a football team. What was the demographic makeup of your football team in high school?
We had 2 African-American kids.
2.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm asking you this because I'm stringing together a timeline of when you started to develop your work ethic. You said you were stacking wood, but I'm sure you were shoveling driveways too.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Same here. You get to high school, you're playing baseball, you're playing football, you're still pretty much in a homogenous environment. Did you have any aspirations to play baseball in college?
You know, I really did until I realized I couldn't. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's becomes a stark reality, and has certainly helped me understand things as I go forward in life, and in my career and what I do every day. I mean, you know, you don't have to be. You can be successful as an incredible teammate and not be the best player on the team. You know, you
Right.
can be a team leader and not be the best player on the team. And I was always that person willing to do whatever. Like, you know, in high school, it's always one of those, who's going to carry the bags, who's going to carry the coolers. Like, even as a senior, I would go help the freshmen carry this stuff, right? Just because someone had to do the job. Someone had to be a good teammate. I was always that guy. You know, then I realized pretty quickly, probably by my junior year, like, playing in college is going to be hard. I got recruited for Division III, but that wasn't going to work out. I mean, you know, I wanted to go. I really wanted to go to Boston College, and you know, in that, I think being around that environment changed me significantly. But you know, I always kind of grew up thinking I was going to play center field for the Red Sox, and then I realized there was no way that was going to happen. There was just no way. Even the Red Sox were bad at that point. I couldn't play for them.
Ed, I'm going to take this dig at you. For the longest time, you might as well have been playing center field for the Red Sox.
No doubt.
And,
no doubt.
And then it all changed. We ain't going to get into how it all changed because I don't want to talk about that.
I was going to say, you're not recovered,
not talking
man.
about that. Not talking
15
about
years
that.
later, you're not recovered.
So you go to Boston College. You stay close to home and go to Boston College.
Yep.
And now you're in this ridiculously ethnically diverse environment compared to where you've come from. What was it like for you, since you didn't play any sports in college? How did you decide during your 4 years at BC that you wanted to go to grad school, and what were some of the biggest changes that you went through as a person while you were away at college when it came to people?
Yeah, it was, you know, I went to college, and I had the fortune of, you know, I wrote for the school newspaper, but I was also friends with a bunch of student athletes. And that was, to me, you know, it opened up my world and helped me figure so much of it out. I mean, I really kind of started understanding in college the power of diversity, and not only of ethnicity, but in many ways.
Ideas.
It really was. And just culture, ideas, backgrounds. I mean, all those pieces, I was never exposed to that. I mean, you know, and it just opened my eyes. It was just like one of those things. I said, oh my gosh, there's a different world out there.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I think some of my closest friends in the world, I have a group of guys that I grew up with, and I used to work summer camps with, and we worked at a special needs summer camp in the summer in high school. And that group of my 4 or 5 guys, we've been friends for 35 years, right? Mm-hmm. But then we have, you know, my better friends in the world are from college. I mean,
right.
and you know, I mean, and we're still all very close. I mean, I was texting with Gonzo and Mike today. You know, it's one of those things where everything started to make sense in college.
Mike Mamula.
Mike, yeah.
That was your guy, yeah.
Yep, and everything started to make sense. I mean, everything was sort of like, I kind of understood who I was supposed to be, and why the things that were inside of me, like you know, the thought of being around different ideas and being around different folks and all that was to take your word, embraced. It really was. In sports, in you know, either working in the athletic department, sports information, or writing for the school paper and being a sports editor. I mean, sports gave me that avenue to open up my world. And I learned, I mean, I got to travel and I got to meet different people. You know, I had the folks that were like Coach Coughlin and Coach O'Brien, and Coach York, who were so influential, even going forward. I mean, in my career, they were so influential. It really opened up everything for me.
But how did you connect with Coach York? And I remember him because he's probably the most positive, happy guy I've ever met.
Yeah.
And that was just in passing. So how did you get connected with those with those coaches while you were at BC?
Well, being the sports editor for the school newspaper, I got to interview them a bunch, and I just built relationships with that, and I had friends on teams as well. So that certainly helped. But being around it all the time, I mean, I never forget. I mean, I was a junior in college, and we beat North Carolina, who was #1 in the country in the NCAA tournament in the second round in DC. Like, we're all kind of like, and T-Dub was there, obviously, and as part of the staff. But, it was a different time. Like, the assistant coaches, and I would work camps and things like that. The assistant coaches, we're all kind of like friends with them. I mean, it was like, now students and staff members they don't hang out. That doesn't ever happen anymore.
Right.
But back then it was normal. And it was one of the most welcoming environments I'd ever been a part of.
Yeah, well, BC is a special place. I enjoy. I was only there 11 months, and it was my first time being back on the East Coast, living in a real city in 6 years, living in San Diego, and it all came to an end too soon for me. It was great just being 3.5-hour drive away from New York.
Yep.
A little bit longer to go home to see my mom in New Jersey, but. So after you're done at BC, you go on to grad school.
Well, I waited. So I went and worked for a while. I did it the unconventional way. So I didn't go to grad school until I got to American. I started a little bit when I was at Merrimack. I went to I started do a little continuing ed classes at BC to try to get in, but then I got the job at American, and I did what I would call the grad school war of attrition, where I did 1 or 2 classes a semester every semester, and it took me forever and a day. But so I worked for 5 years before I really even got into grad school, got in deep in the grad school stuff. And I had kids, I was married. I mean, like, I had a lot going on, to say the least, but I knew I had to go into the grad school thing in order to get where I wanted to get to career-wise. So I just had to buckle. It goes back to the hard work thing. I just had to buckle down and do it. And I had to build some relationships with some professors to get a little grace at times when my work maybe not have been. There's one time I'll never forget this. We were in the middle of a road trip, and I got back and I had to take an exam, and I really wasn't prepared, and as well as I really should have been. And there were 4 questions on the exam. It was sort of writing thing, 4 questions on it, and I knew 2 of them. And I wrote the 2 that I knew, and I handed it to him. I said, "I'm sorry. It's the best I got today." That's all I could do. I mean, it's just one of those things. And he just laughed. He'd say, "Don't worry about it. Your grades are fine." But it was just, I mean, you kind of had to get some help at some points. But yeah, I mean, I did the grad school thing late, and I tell anyone who comes through and asks me for advice on how to get into this career and how to be in college athletics, go to grad school right away.
Yeah.
Like, don't be an adult trying to go back to school. There were benefits at times, because a lot of times I'd be in classes with students who were just out of college, and they didn't have any real world experience. They didn't know how things worked. So I could be the old guy in the room who could say, okay, but in business, this is how it really works. But from a time perspective and all that, man, it was hard. It was super hard.
So you fast forwarded through the wife, the family, and I wanted to learn how you and Shelly met and what that courtship process looked like, but we could talk about that some other time. What I want to know is, at what point did you know that you wanted to have a career in collegiate athletics? Was it while you were at BC? It was? Okay. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, I'll never forget. I mean, I kind of I was a junior, and I kind of figured out, like, okay, being a sports writer is hard. And I was, trying to do that and think that was going to be my career. And being a really good writer every single day, and being original and being impactful every single day, that's hard to do. And, it's hard to be a journalist. But I also realized, being a part of the story, even if I was a small part of the story, to me, I could have more impact than being the one telling the story, right? So, I looked at coaches at Boston College and the administrators at Boston College that I get to know, like Tom Peters, who is obviously a wonderful guy. I got to know them, and I realized the impact they had on the student athletes' lives is something that I really wanted to do when I grew up. I don't know if I've grown up yet, I'm working on my path to growing up right now, but and I looked at it and said, well, I think I could do that. Like that makes sense. That's something it seems like it's a really good thing to do. And I knowing Dick Kelly, God rest his soul. I mean, he was the one who said, well, you can do this. And, that's why sports information was sort of my initial way to get in on the business. But I saw that you could have passion for other people and really impact lives on a much bigger scale than if you were the one telling the story. And that really, I remember my junior year in college, it was like, this is what I want to do. And I was crazy enough to think I could do it. But I think if you're just a little bit lucky and you work really hard at it and you just don't put barriers in front of yourself, you can accomplish things.
I agree with you 100%. So you knew junior year at BC that you wanted to get into collegiate athletics. Did you know you wanted to be an athletic director in particular?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Now at that time, like I didn't know. Like I thought maybe I need to get an MBA, and what does that look like, and how do I even do that? Like, but I said to myself, well, maybe I'll start working for a year because I wasn't the greatest student. I mean, I would work at it, but I didn't like going to class.
Well, you and I get along.
No doubt, man.
This is why you and I get along. You didn't like school. You set the bus on fire. We did worse on the bus in high school.
Yeah.
I should have been suspended a couple of times. My mom was on. Shout out to my mom. I don't think she.
Yeah, seriously. How did she ever put up with you, man? I have no idea.
I didn't get caught for a lot of things, but when I did get caught, yeah. So you go to grad school, and what was your major in grad school?
So I did public health promotion in grad school, which I thought to myself, if I'm going to work in athletics, I kind of really need to know what makes people healthy. Because in the end of the day, I mean, fitness, health, all those things those are super important in the lives of student athletes. And I think as we've gone forward now, things like nutrition, things like mental health, things like how you prepare yourself in terms of your physical preparation for things. Even now we're getting to a point I didn't obviously be a part of it then, but now it's like mindfulness and meditation, all those pieces.
Yeah.
Those are so important that go into performance. So I thought that health promotion and understanding the business of being healthy and how those whole things fit together, I thought that was going to be really important in my career, and it has been. I mean, I kind of lucked out a little bit on that, but it's been super important for me to kind of learn those pieces of it, and I wish I probably at times I listened to my nutrition teacher a little, nutrition professor a little more than I did, but it's amazing how much those lessons, and my advisor in grad school, who was the chair of the department, a guy named Dr. Bob Karsh, is another one of my mentors, just someone who was not only patient with me, but really boiled things down to the simple things. I do believe if you go through these, you read any book on coaches who are successful, or managers, presidents, whatever, who are successful of teams, and there's always like this is the new trick, this is the new thing. Well, at the end of the day, the simple things and the small details are what make you successful. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, your attention to small details and the simple things, you get the simple things right, you can control. That's what makes you successful. So and Dr. Karsh was, I mean, I still keep in touch with him, even it's been 15 years since I got out of grad school. He's a wonderful man who's written a bunch of books, and just smart, just super smart. Former wrestling coach. I mean, as another person who's a coach in my life, at some point that really influenced me.
So lots of parallels, because my guy, when I was at San Diego State for grad school, was Dr. Mechikoff. So, and it's interesting because he had a profound impact on my life while I was trying to make it through grad school. Mm-hmm. And then, as I mentioned, my high school football coach was everything to me during that 4-year period of time. So you're in grad school, you want to be an athletic director. You start sending out your resume to try and get a full-time job while you're in grad school, correct?
I just graduated from grad school. I'd been an American for probably 5 years at this point. Okay. and I just finished grad school, and I worked for a woman named Joni Comstock, who's she's now the senior vice president for championships at the NCAA. But Joni gave me one of the greatest gifts that anyone could ever give me. She gave me belief. And, you know, I was kind of at the point where I was, what's my next step in my career? And, you know, I'd only worked at 2 places. I mean, it's not like I was bouncing around, but, you know, I just kind of got a little restless, and I was looking at fundraising jobs, because I was doing fundraising at that time at bigger schools. And she said, you know what, you can do this. And I was the interim AD before her for a little bit of time too. And
where?
At American.
Okay.
At American University in DC. So, you know, she said, you know, you can be an AD. Like you're ready to do this. I mean, and I was 33 years old at the time, and you know, she was right. So I got involved in a couple of interviews for a couple places, and didn't work out. And then I was fortunate enough to interview for the job at Niagara, and but I got an on-campus interview this time, and went in and did a good enough job that I tricked them into hiring me. So it was nice.
So I want you to be clear, because maybe I'm missing something. While you're at American, while you're in school,
yeah,
you become the interim AD.
Yeah. I was in grad school. I was the head of fundraising. I was the only fundraising person at American at the time.
As a graduate student.
Yeah, I mean, I was a full-time employee and doing grad school at the same time.
Okay.
So I was doing grad school. I was a full-time employee. I was the interim AD. Had 2 kids. Yeah, it was a lot. But, you know, I think that DC was an incredibly important period in my career, in my life. I never lived outside of 9 miles my entire life before I moved to DC in 2000 at the age of 27. I never lived, you know, in Boston College gave me a level of diversity because of the student athlete population, the student population at Boston College. But then I moved to DC, and, you know, DC is such a diverse place. I mean, it's just, I mean, refreshing in so many ways, right?
Right.
You know, it showed me like, hey, listen, the things that you want in terms of a diverse society and a diverse culture in your friend groups and all that, like DC is an example. It can happen. I mean, DC's got its own craziness. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's got more craziness now than ever before. But, you know, it really showed me, like, hey, listen, the things that you think of, the things that I thought about in terms of diversity and inclusion, and the things that we kind of look at as inclusive excellence now, like it existed in DC, and it just made it pop for me. It's like, gosh, like I felt like I really thrived there, and since I moved back down here to Richmond after Niagara, I mean, Richmond's a very diverse place, and as is VCU's incredibly diverse university. It's really all the lessons I learned in DC and the comfort level I had with you know, embracing this and what I wanted it to be. I mean, it's everything is that and more.
Well, Ed, it's important for our viewers that are here live, and when we record this and post it, you know, we can skip past Niagara, and now you're the athletic director at the largest university in the state, correct?
Yep. Yeah, largest university in the state. You know, it's interesting. We are the largest university at 31,000 students, 32,000 students in the state. We have the most in-state students. We have the most Pell eligible students, and we have the most diverse student body in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, so it's a pretty special place.
Well, you know, my 3 seasons at at Ohio State, I became familiar with a bunch of quotes by Woody Hayes, their football coach, their legendary football coach. And
yep.
One of his quotes, which is my favorite, is the most simple one: "You win with people."
No doubt.
And for you to come from your background, which was a pretty homogenous upbringing, and now you've worked in athletic departments where the main revenue generators at your schools that you've been an athletic director at are men's basketball, predominantly African-American student athletes, coaches, the like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How have you learned over the years to be a manager and a leader of people when you've had to add different types of people, or different types of people were added to your life that you had to get to know and learn how to communicate with. And you know our relationship. You and I talk about social topics all the time. And we talk about the racial dynamic that exists in this country that most people want to ignore. I won't let you ignore it. And you've always been ready to engage with me about how different people are.
Yeah.
And why people don't understand each other because they don't spend time with one another. Your career has opened up the door for you to spend time with people that you weren't spending time with when you were a kid. What has that process been for you? Like, for example, Shaka. Shaka Smart was older than you. Here's this kid in his eyes coming in and being the athletic director. And you and I talked about that a little bit. We talked about what that dynamic was going to be like. And I said to you, just be you. If somebody has a problem with you, then the problem is probably them. Being you has worked out for you, but you've had to learn how to be you and incorporate other people into your world. How have you been able to do that?
You know, I think there's probably I hate when things become buzzwords a little bit, so I'm gonna not use them as buzzwords. But I think that the things for me, certainly coming to VCU, but it started at Niagara in terms of leadership training and trying to become a better AD and better leader of people. Certainly, I think the things that I've really foundationally had to have. So I think number one, you know, as a leader, you have to be authentic, right? I mean, there's no question about that. And I think if you ask any of our student athletes, anyone I've worked with for a long time, I am who I am. I mean, there's no facade there with me. I mean, you know, what you see is what you get, and I'm going to be 100% me all the time. But I think that is a thing that people sort of they like that because you know what you're going to get, right? So I think the authenticity part is super important. I think what I've learned is how important empathy is, how important vulnerability is, and without confidence in yourself, and confidence, and that's not arrogance by any stretch of the imagination. It's being confident in who you are. That way you can be vulnerable. I think vulnerability is probably one of the greatest strengths anyone can ever have as a leader. It's certainly.
I agree with you, man. Especially around the young people. I've said this to adults whenever I get the chance when I'm speaking. I think it's important for us to be vulnerable enough to young people to let them know that we've made mistakes.
Yep.
And that you don't have to put this pressure on yourself to be perfect, but you have to feel comfortable with yourself.
You do.
To be that vulnerable and not put up a front. And I applaud you for doing that, Ed.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, it's if you can have a level of appreciation every day for what you have, and you can tell people that you appreciate them, not that you appreciate what they've done, but you appreciate them. You know, there's a big difference between saying I appreciate it and I appreciate you. I appreciate you is a lot more impactful because you know that it's not transactional at that point. It's I appreciate who you are and the things that are important to you, and those things are important to me as well. You know, so I think, you know, I've been able to build relationships with our student athletes. I mean, I've heard from many student athletes at other places. You know, we've either had kids come and transferred and things like that, and they never met the AD. And like, it blows my mind. Like, how can you be an athletic director and not want to? You may not have the best relationship with all 300 of your student athletes, but never met them and never talked to them, and never seen them around. I mean, it's just crazy to me. But I think I was able to learn if I can be vulnerable and be authentic, and have a huge level of empathy. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, in our business, obviously we're a bunch of super competitive human beings, right? Yeah. You know, but if you can't have level of empathy for other people's success as a leader, and if you're more concerned with your own success rather than other people's success, you're going to fail. You're going to fail no one's going to follow you if you're concerned about your own deal and not everybody else's. I get the greatest joy in anything when a group of people come together and achieve a common goal. I mean, I think that there's nothing more rewarding than being able to celebrate something with a group of people that you could not have done on your own.
Yeah.
Nothing more rewarding to me. And I'm so super thankful that I've been able to be in situations where we've won a ton of championships and we've done some incredible things together. But I think, those relationships, when you work hard at the relationship part of it, those carry through after. Like when Coach Smart left, I told him, he called me that Thursday night and he said he was going to Texas. And I said, man, I'm happy for you. I really am, because we talked about what it would look like if he did go and if he didn't go. And, we had genuine conversations about it, and we're still friends to this day, and we always will be. And he's one of the most incredible connectors as a human being with other people that I've ever been around and had the good fortune to call a friend. I mean, he's been incredible.
Well, he should like you. You gave him a nice raise.
Well, he earned it, man. I didn't give him anything. Nothing's given in life. You got to earn it. I mean, I'll tell you that.
You're right about that. Let me give a shout out to the people in the chat. If anybody has any questions for VCU Athletic Director Ed McLaughlin, please give him a shout out now. Type in your comments, and we'll give him an opportunity to answer your questions. Speaking of folks moving on, I think it's tremendously appropriate that you had the opportunity. Somebody said Ed is the GOAT. Cooler than Golden. Ed is the GOAT. All right, Ed's the greatest athletic director of all time. I'm not going to argue with that.
I might have the best hair of any AD of all time, but that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, we don't have. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Oh yeah, Sons of Habit says his hair game is strong.
There it goes.
Yeah, Manny says that. You had an opportunity to hire a new coach as Shaka transitioned on to Texas. What were the main traits in a coach that you were looking for? Because this is a big hire for you. This is a coach that went to the Final Four, pretty much put VCU basketball on the map. You're a new athletic director. McLaughlin, don't F it up.
Yeah, I mean, I had Coach Smart for 3 years, and then he left for Texas, and then it was obviously a big hire. So I hired Coach Wade, and it was one of those things where with anyone we interviewed, and since after Will left 2 years later, we hired Mike Rhodes is our current coach, and Mike's done an incredible job for us, and will continue to for a long time. But the first and foremost thing to me is, if you don't talk about the student athletes and their experience and developing them into being the best versions of themselves within the first sentence or two, you got no hope with me. It has to be foundationally about the student athletes and developing them, and not developing those basketball players. It's not. It's how are we going to develop them as human beings, get them to be the best version of themselves. Because if you can do that from a work ethic perspective, from an appreciation perspective, from being committed to something, setting your own goals to the side for the team's goals, not complaining about things, not making excuses, being accountable. You can do all those things, and because those things get done in practice every day. You do all those things, the winning takes care of itself. Yeah. And we've continued to prove that day after day. I mean, the winning takes care of itself. But we've just, I think what we do really well here at VCU, and I don't know if we do a whole lot of things well, but I think the one thing we do really, really well is we invest in our kids, and our student athletes know how invested we are in them. Because, you said, use the Woody Hayes quote, you win with people. And I really do believe that. I mean, we have an incredible basketball practice facility now. It's one of the nicest in the country. It's 5 years old now, and almost 5 years old. It's one of the nicest in the country. But VCU was built on our old practice gym, which was a dump, and it was 130 degrees in the summertime. And that made us, that character part of it made us as a program. I mean, we didn't win because we had the nicest practice facility in the Final Four. We had one of the worst in the country. But, the people made us win. So I think, we really have just, and all of our coaches, from 1 to 12, all of our coaches now would tell you the most important thing about our department every single day is about the student athletes. You know, the most important thing. Obviously, donors are important, board members are important, campus people are important. They're all important. Don't get me wrong. The single most important thing is our student athletes every day. And if we can get them to be the best versions of themselves, then the winning will take care of itself. And then they'll go on to have incredibly successful careers. That to me is so rewarding. And because it takes all of us. It can't just be me saying that and then our academic staff doesn't do it. It can't be me saying that and our facility staff doesn't do it. It can't be me saying, like, you have to have everybody working together to get that to happen. But we do that here, and it's magic, man. It really is. It's just a magical place to be.
Yeah, and you know, you helped build that magic. And I'll say this, Ed, you know, we only have a couple of minutes left, but Timmy jumped on and said that you care not only about VCU, but the entire community.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that everyone knows that the Ed McLaughlin that they see with the coat and tie on as the athletic director, there's so much more to that guy. But what Timmy said about you caring about the community, every step of the way, wherever you've been, you have always communicated with me about, Shep, the program that you're doing, we should be doing it here. And you didn't just talk about it. When you were at Niagara, you invested finances into our program.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Niagara. We tried, didn't work out at Niagara.
It's a hard place to do it.
Came to VCU, different story. And I think everyone needs to know that their athletic director cares about the Richmond, Virginia community, the relationships in those communities. He's put his money where his mouth is. I'm going to share this. You can yell at me later. Last year, the athletic department with Ed's leadership invested $20,000 into Game Changer coming to RVA to improve law enforcement community relations. And because we did that, and you're surrounded by other leadership on campus, Chief Venuti.
Yes.
That seed that you planted turned into a $100,000 plus grant being awarded to Game Changers through VCU for us to continue to come back to Richmond and improve law enforcement community relations. That's not about athletics. That's about community. And I want to thank you for doing that. And I don't know if anybody knows that you did that.
I appreciate it.
Since then, but I need to make sure that people know. I also want to make sure that people know the type of person that you are, that this relationship that you and I have, we're two different guys from two different cultures, but I'm discovering things about you. Now I know why we get along.
Of course.
We were pains in the ass growing up, and that little character trait doesn't necessarily leave. You learn how to control it, but
yes,
the conversation that you and I have as a black guy and a white guy from two different worlds, but we're two East Coast guys. I think in this period of time where there's so much division, our relationship has stood the test of time. We've known each other for, I want to say, what, 24 years?
24 years, yeah.
20,
yeah,
23
when you first
years?
got BC. Yep.
Yeah, man. And
we can't be that old, though, right? I mean, like, this
well,
is
I'm
great
older
for
than
both
you.
of us.
You can always call me the old guy because I'm older than you.
You are.
I want to see you grow this out.
It's getting there.
No,
like, I got to shave once a week. I shaved 2 days ago.
Yeah, no, I want to see you do this so we can see the grays in your face, man.
Yeah, it's come, believe me. If it grows out a little bit, it's all gray here too. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you are a great example of someone who's taken a comprehensive approach to being a leader. This isn't about wins and losses. It's not about just raising money so that you can do things on campus at VCU. You looked at where you were at and said, how can I use my platform? How can I use my title? How can I use all the lessons that I learned from my high school football coach, from my mentor in grad school, from my dad, and have an open mind and think macro and have the people in place that they can whatever vision that you have, inside and outside of athletics, you can get it accomplished. And I want to just acknowledge that you're that type of guy, man.
I appreciate that. I mean, I really do believe, like, if you care about other people and you make, like I said early on, I mean, you be positive, work hard, and make it about other people all the time. That really has to carry over to your community. And we are only as good as the community in which we live in terms of how successful we want to be. You can't just turn your eye and pretend that things aren't going on around you. You really can't, unless you don't have some level of a moral and ethical compass, at least for me. I mean, I've always just kind of gone on the fact that, the best way for me to kind of have fulfillment is—
We got 30 seconds left, Ed.
Make it about the community. And that's what we've done. And I think the Game Changer model will continue to do that for a long time here in Richmond.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thanks for getting on, telling us about yourself. Any website you want us to go to? Anybody that you want to give a shout out to in 10 seconds or less?
VCUathletics.com and check out all of our social media accounts. That's we get some pretty amazing stories.
Thanks a lot, Ed. I'll get with you. Thanks for jumping on CommYOUnity Quarantine.